Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Depends on what part of the world you are in. I'm Kevin Impeccable Peck, your host, and this is the Chicken Box. Man, are you happy you woke up today? I mean, you let's just take a second and say that we're grateful for waking up. I always say let's start off with a smile. Maybe you haven't smiled all day. Maybe you have an attitude. I'm not sure, but just put a little smile on your face. It makes you feel better. It makes people around you feel better, and it shows some light. I represent the Gen X's, and we have a fantastic show today. Black people versus black women in media. Black women are doing the fellas. We need to step our game up, but that's not what the show is about today. This is about just honoring. We have an iconic guest today. We're going to introduce in a second. Courtney, I want to say good morning or good afternoon to you. Is Chicago an hour back?
Yeah, I'm an hour behind you.
Absolutely. How are you today?
I'm doing great. I am blessed to be alive today. How are you?
Fantastic. And Dr. Bulware, I know I'll call you Dorothy or Reverend or Rev or whatever you like, but thank you for filling in for Dr. Draper today. How are you this morning?
Every day for me is a great gift. And I'm happy to be alive. I'm happy to be breathing. I'm happy to be looking at you young people. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to share today.
Thank you for calling you young people. I felt so young when you said that. Anyway, let's get into it. If you haven't ever heard of the Chicken Box before, of course, if you're from the Baltimore area, it is 4 wings and fries. It can become greasy. It's lunchtime. If you're hungry right now, put a little salt, pepper, ketchup, and then we add a half and half with it. That's sweet tea and sweet lemonade. And so in some parts of the country they call it an Arnold Palmer. So you get what I'm talking about. But here's where we inform, educate, inspire, and we really get into the topics and the needs of the Black community. And each week we have a theme, and we're talking about Black women in media today. We have a special guest. Now, of course, I'm sorry I didn't mention this, but it's powered by the Afro-American newspaper, Maryland's oldest Black business. How could I forget? Celebrating 130 years this August. All right, got all of the stuff out the way. Now I'm going to introduce Miss Cathy Hughes. Let's see, Miss Hughes, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm with you.
All right, welcome to the Chicken Box.
Thank you very much.
I
You were
wanna
supposed to send me the wings and fries, though.
Okay, yeah, you know what? Uber Eats. Just have Ebony text me your address. I got you.
Okay.
Might be a little cold coming from Baltimore, but it'll make it. Where are you at Silver Spring?
No, I'm in Pasadena.
Okay, well you will make it. We can do that.
Absolutely.
That's a great idea. That's a
Absolutely.
great
I
idea.
love the name. How clever. But I have to first say thank God for 130 years of the Afro-American newspaper. I mean, those of us in the electronic media are new kids. We're rookies compared to you all. I mean, the fact that you all have been doing it and still after each generation just steps up to the plate. And my favorite thing in business is family owned businesses. And it's one of the most difficult things. Generational businesses are very difficult. And the Afro has been doing it and doing it and doing it. And so thank God for that blessing. And congratulations to, as Dorothy called you, the youngins.
If you have been under a rock or just tuned in, this is the iconic Cathy Hughes. She is a dynamic media pioneer who demonstrates the power of one woman, one vision, and one company. Now, a lot of that you can read. She's the founder and the chairwoman of Urban One. But here on the Chicken Box, we have a casual conversation. We don't want to talk about things that you could just Google and read and find out.
Oh, that's great.
We want to, how sometimes you go places and they just read the whole bio and it's like,
I know. And you're like, I could read it if I wanted to read
right,
it.
you could
Right?
go anywhere on Google. But I like to go back to your mindset and your journey, because you're a visionary. And I remember straight out of college at Morgan State University, coming over
where I have an honorary doctorate.
There you go. Working at the Washington Afro. And my grandmother, when I was riding to work with her, would have on this AM station, which, when you're young and 21, you do not want to listen to any of that music, any talk radio at all. But I found myself in my early 20s just attracted to the conversations and just the energy of Miss Hughes and just the drive. But before that, before the story, let's talk about what made you want to start your own media company or first radio station.
When I was 8 years old, my mother bought me a transistor radio for Christmas. And we were in public housing. There were 6 of us in the house, one bathroom. And I would go in the bathroom. My microphone was my toothbrush. And I got more punishment about this transistor radio and my morning radio show because everybody needed to get into the bathroom to get ready for either work or school. I never came out the bathroom until my morning show was over. And I only was interested actually in doing public service announcements, news, and commercials. Because quite frankly, at age 8, we didn't have any Black music in Omaha, Nebraska. I was an expert on Conway Twitty. I was an expert on Willie Nelson and Bonnie Raitt. I knew the country, and back then it was called country and western. I knew the country artists, but I wanted to talk on the radio. I was fascinated at a very early age, and I thank God. And I talk about frequently the fact that sometimes we know what we're supposed to be doing in life, but we don't realize that what we're doing as children is really going to be our career, and that we just need to really embrace that which we like to do, because when you enjoy it, it's not work. And so I knew at age 8 that I wanted to be on the radio.
Absolutely. I think that's fantastic. And that's a great point because a lot of times we try to put what we wanted to do as adults on our children instead of letting them grow in and be what God created them to be, or just not putting a limit, because I was saying the other day the only limits on ourselves are the ones that we place in our mind. So Dr. Boulware and Courtney, I'm just going in the beginning just kind of get to this story, but you had the vision at 8. You was holding up the bathroom in public housing. Y'all know what that is. That's the projects. Yes, they have projects in Nebraska. First of all, I don't know any Black people from Nebraska.
Okay, let's start with Malcolm X.
All right.
Was born in Omaha, Nebraska.
Break it down for me. Come on.
All right. Let's talk about Gale Sayers, one of the greatest running backs in the history of the NFL.
Chicago Bears.
Let's talk about Johnny Rodgers, who won the Heisman Trophy back in the 1950s. Let's talk about the Omaha Star newspaper, which has been around for 50 years, where Simone's mother is the editor and publisher. Omaha has a lot of Black history. We had riots. We had a lot of people don't realize that Omaha is halfway between the East Coast and the West Coast. Chicago was where we went. Chicago and Kansas City is where we went to be in the big city life. But Omaha was quite progressive because at one time, Omaha, for the wealth index, we were number 3 in the entire United States in terms of wealth. Now, Warren Buffett alone is one of the reasons that we were able to accomplish that. But we're the headquarters for Union Pacific. They had a lot of Black folks building those railroads all the way east and west. Swanson Frozen Dinners, TV dinners were created in Omaha, Nebraska. Mutual of Omaha. All of these companies had sizable Black employee population. Now, unfortunately, it wasn't until, after the Civil Rights Movement and Dr. King came to Omaha that those African Americans were moved in the ranks, but we always were there as domestics. We were always there as porters. We were always part of the population of this great wealth population and industry that existed in Omaha.
Thank you. That was a moment in Omaha history, y'all. If you just tuned in, this is the Chicken Box. We're on with media icon, Cathy Hughes. and we're just having a conversation about Black women in media, really. But more than that, we're just sharing a story of a visionary who I hope inspires somebody else to wake up and just and run with their vision. Because I heard, I don't know, maybe you can correct me. How many banks said no to you?
32.
32. So if she stopped at two, you know what I mean?
I would be here sitting here talking to you today
There
if
would
I
be
had
no there
stopped.
would be no Radio One.
Yeah, but the interesting thing is, I got expert at my presentation. It gave me an opportunity to hone my presentation. And the 33rd was a woman, her first week on the job. And she taught me a very valuable lesson because she had said yes. And she had already reviewed the package and said yes, had already made up her mind that her first week she was going to make $1 million loan and I was going to be that $1 million loan. I just kept pitching her. I kept asking her. I kept trying to address the issue. And she said, young lady, stop. You need to never, ever sell past the close. And I have shared that great advice with so many individuals. After 32 times, I didn't hear her say yes, quite frankly. I was anticipating another no, and I was trying to convince her not to be that no, and I already had $1 million loan and was selling past it. Sometimes we actually talk ourselves out of the blessing that's coming our way because we don't know when to stop. We don't know when to accept the good fortune.
Absolutely. And if you've been in sales, and I see you were in sales at the WHUR, the
I was
general.
the sales manager first at WHUR, and then I was the general manager. Both times, I was the first woman in those positions in the nation's capital, which is quite significant in Washington, D.C., because even though we don't have the size of a New York or a Chicago or even a Baltimore, because it's the nation's capital, you have an emphasis on media. I, quite frankly, was a lot more familiar with the Washington, D.C. edition of the Afro American News than I was the Baltimore, quite frankly.
Absolutely. So I was just saying that they said you took it from 250 to 3 million. So I guess you learned that lesson about the clothes along the
Well,
way. If you're not in
that's
sales,
what I did at WHUR. But it was a fairly easy lift, to be very honest with you. I get a lot of credit for that. And it's like, documented fact that people are like, how'd you do that? Number one, Howard University didn't know anything about being in the media business. They should have hired someone from the Afro, quite frankly, because Howard knew about education. They didn't have a rate card. They didn't have salespeople. I hired their first sales staff. So it wasn't as hard a lift. Once I had a rate card, I had a sales package, and I had a staff to take it out. Okay. The money, because it was a gift from, well, it wasn't a total gift. Catherine Graham sold it for $1 to Howard University, so it wasn't totally a gift. They purchased it for $1,
I'll
but the
take one of those
reality,
for $1.
$1, one
Yes.
dollar is what they paid for WHUR, which turned out to be the strongest and the most important signal in the nation's capital. But there were a lot of people who wanted. Washington has always had a sizable population of black businesses because Washington D.C. has historically been such a segregated city and still very much so, even with gentrification. If you go to a black church on Sunday morning, you'll see very few white people. If you go to a white church, you may see no black people.
Hmm.
So there's still a segregated Washington D.C. that does not get a lot of play in the press, but it's true. And so there were a lot of black folks that wanted to see Howard University succeed because they were the first black owned radio station in the nation's capital. They had other black formats, but they were owned by white corporations that had, the days. A lot of people don't realize that they didn't allow black folks to be on the radio. They had white folks that imitated and tried to sound like black folks and would speak Ebonics, they thought.
That sounds like they still trying to imitate us. They're not going to ever catch up. Courtney, our newest team member from Chicago, chime in. What's something that you would burning to ask Miss Hughes?
Sure thing. So right now, because you did mention like entrepreneurship, how important do you think entrepreneurship is for African Americans overall, especially women of color?
One of the things that has been part of the myth, the conspiracy to keep Black folks thinking wrongly about who we are and what we've accomplished has to do with wealth. We've been told that you make some money and you change. You don't want to look out for your people. That is the antithesis of the truth. The truth is that liberation and freedom have to be financed, and the only way to do that is through Black wealth. Black folks have always reached back and helped each other. That's what the Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma was about. That's the reason they dropped bombs and burned it to the ground. And then the Black folks rebuilt it and they got destroyed a second time. The reality is that liberation is not free, freedom is not free. And as long as you're asking someone else to finance your own liberation, it's not in their best interest. Quite frankly, other ethnic groups have their own set of issues in an economic system. And so, why should you hire my cousin when you got a cousin who's unemployed and graduated from college? Why should you provide an opportunity for my child when I have children of my own that need opportunity? So the only way that we can really achieve what we need to achieve in our community is for us to finance it. Well, the only way you finance it, you can't do that out of a paycheck. You have to do that out of entrepreneurial ventures, Courtney. And one of the things that has historically been a problem, in my opinion, in the mentality of Black America is we felt that education was the best route to liberation and freedom. We have to really change our thinking about the route really has to be paved with entrepreneurs. It's great. And one of the benefits of COVID, and Lord knows I hate COVID, it killed my mama. My mama would still be alive today had she not tested positive for COVID. And basically, it was early on, and she was transitioned by the hospital because they didn't know what to do for her. And she was 96 and she had dementia. She had been a nurse, so my mother wouldn't stay in the bed. She felt that she should get up and help other people because it was familiar territory for her. But anyway, long story short, one of the best things about COVID was that it taught people that they could be entrepreneurs. It encouraged the development of being self-employed. A lot of Black folks started companies that they never would have dreamed about if they had stayed on other people's payrolls and continued getting that paycheck. Even people of means live paycheck to paycheck because with increased pay comes increased responsibilities. They found out that it was cheaper to stay home. They didn't have to worry about gas. They didn't have to worry about taking their clothes to the cleaners. They didn't have to worry about lunch money. There were certain things, certain expenses that are associated with a job that they found out, particularly your generation, Courtney. Hey, I could save money and make money at the same time, but more importantly, I can do something I love. I can braid hair, I can cook, I can create widgets. I can create stuff that's never been created before. So COVID really gave birth to a whole different understanding of being an entrepreneur. A lot of young people found out that it ain't brain surgery. It's not as difficult. What it is, the hardest part is perseverance. The hardest part is not giving up when times get rough. I mean, to me, there's nothing worse, rougher on a young person than being at a job that they, number one, hate, working for a supervisor who's not as smart as they are, being discriminated against, sometimes for just being smart, because that discrimination sometimes also can occur when you're working for a Black company. It's not just white companies that discriminate. And young people always, is something that has not changed since the beginning of time. Young people are persecuted. All right. It's like, we want you to pay your dues. We don't want to listen to your opinion. If you knew so much, how come you're not 40 instead of 20? Okay. Which is foolish. But there's a certain respect. It's like, I just turned 75 and now I'm getting all these awards. I'm like, why didn't you give them to me back when I was trying to build my career? Okay, when I was more actively involved. Now it's a hassle. I gotta get hair, makeup, find something to wear. Back then, I was just waiting for somebody to call my name or say something nice about me. There's something about disrespect of youth that has got to change in the world of employment, because there's nothing more rewarding than a new idea.
Boom. That's a perfect segment. If you just tuned in, this is Black People versus Black Women in Media with the iconic Cathy Hughes. Dropping those nuggets, y'all, dropping those wisdom. If you have seen the Afro's new staff, I think we have more young people than old people, right? I mean, a great idea is a great idea. For those of you who know me in my other life in the music business, a hit record is a hit record. We don't care if grandma writes it or if
Right.
the top producer writes it, because you never know what is going to be that hit record. And that's the same thing in business. Dr. Bower, representing the boomers or the boomer millennials, like Dr. Draper likes to say.
I was just going to say I'm one of those new young people with the afro, always having a new idea.
Oh, good.
But I have so many questions for you. I don't know where to start. One, I want to know if you would tell us a story of somebody who helped you keep going when you may have been at the verge of giving up.
I've never been at the verge of giving up. Like I said, I've been pursuing my dreams since I was 8 years old. So I've never been at the verge of giving up. But two women who had significant impact on my life, Catherine Graham of the Washington Post and Dr. Dorothy Height. Both of them did something that I tried to emulate, tried to do in my life. They used to give me shout outs. They would invite me to various affairs. And then they would like, oh, I see Courtney in the audience. She's on, Facebook Live right now. You all need to check out this gifted journalist, Courtney Alexander, is somebody whose name you need to remember. They used to say that about me. And so people were like, well, who is she? And so I never had the thought that I would not make it. I felt particularly blessed that they would give me this type of acknowledgement. And I cannot put into words just how important that is for those of us who are at a certain point in our professions and in our age. You know, one of the hard part about turning 75, I'm certainly thankful to God that I'm here. But it also is the official start to the fourth quarter. And so the fourth quarter, is where the game is won. And when you turn 75, the score is based on how many additional years you're going to be able to add to that. But I think that it's important for us to really open doors for young people, to acknowledge their accomplishments. I also think that it's important for us to correct them when we see them going astray. Dr. Height had no business saying, Kathy, I think you need to come by the council today. I want to discuss something with you. I knew I was in trouble. I would be so nervous. And sometimes it was as simple as, I think, Kathy, that you need to change your wardrobe somewhat. Dr. Height, always wore hats and was always dressed like she was going for a photo shoot for a cover of a magazine.
Mhm.
All right. I'm from Omaha. So I would go someplace in my warm-ups. Okay. I had a jogging suit. Okay. She's like, Kathy, at all times, we must be presentable. If you're going to be a leader, you must be someone that young people want to look up to. That type of correction changed my life. I would still probably be showing up in warm-ups. Okay. All right. Particularly when my career started in radio. In radio, hopefully you brush your teeth and comb your hair, but you really don't have to still have a successful program. And she would see me sometimes during those days, I was doing everything in the radio station, and she would see me sometimes, coming straight from having done a 4-hour morning show, sold some airtime, doing whatever. But she was so correct, because even my business improved when I changed my image.
Mm-hmm.
Bam, that's a beautiful point. Young people and old people. She just dropped another nugget. Correction
Mm-hmm.
is the quickest way to success. Now, the thing
Yes,
about it is, a lot of times you don't realize, because sometimes you can get in your feelings, that somebody's telling you something, or you feel and you take it as they're telling you, but really they're giving you the secret sauce to move to the next level. If you would just take a second, like Ms. Hughes said earlier, and listen. 32 radio stations said no. She had been accustomed to hearing no, to the point where that she would just push through, right? Uh, Expecting to know, and miss the yes when it came.
exactly.
The $1 million yes
Yeah.
just
But
dropped.
right. The other thing with correction is sometimes we rationalize it. We resist making the change. All right. A lot of young people now, it was so interesting because I just was honored by being inducted into the Black Music and Entertainment Walk of Fame in Atlanta over the weekend. And so I'm in the airport, and I'm noticing all these young employees in the airport that had these gigantic eyelashes. And so I always strike up conversations with young people. And so I said to one of them, I said, so you look like you're, getting ready to go to a party. And she said, oh, yeah, you never know, who you're going to meet. And so I said, oh, okay. So you think that the eyelashes will attract, attention, and that they'll be more prone to meet you? And she said, yes, that's the reason I get up every morning an hour early and do my lashes and blah, blah, blah. I said to her, what about the person who might find that you would be a lot more attractive without the lashes? And I said, not to say that lashes are bad or wrong. It's just that, you're at work in an airport, okay, pushing people around and doing whatever is necessary. You're basically a porter, and you've got a full makeup. And she kept giving me pushback. And so finally I said to her, I was finally able to break through. I said, you're beautiful. I said, but when you get up and put on eyeshadow and lashes and have, a full face of, what the young folks were with, and you're in drag, then no one can really see. And I said, suppose it's Tyler Perry coming through, and he needs somebody who's got a clean face and looks like they're 17, even though they may be 23 or 24. I'd already asked her how old she was. And she stopped and she thought about it. So I don't know, but if I'm in the Atlanta airport anytime in the near future, I will see, can I see if I had any impact? Because she had on the shadows, she had on the lashes, she had full scale makeup like you would put on if you were going out. So just the opposite of what Dr. Height had said to me, that I wasn't doing enough. Okay. She was doing too much, I felt. But I looked around, and so were so many other young ladies in the airport working in full drag. And I'm like, wow, you might be really shooting yourself in the foot thinking that you're looking more attractive and people are going to pay attention, when in fact it might cause someone just to dismiss you immediately, that you're in full face, okay, doing, working a counter, selling a bottle of water, when somebody might be looking for someone who looks like they're 12 or 13 years old, even though they may be 25, with a clean face. And so I try to do that. I try to, even when I get resistance, because sometimes peer pressure is more important to a young person than good advice, quite frankly. I'm
Absolutely.
not taking off my lashes. Everybody out here got on their lashes, okay? And
Yeah.
so in closing with her, I said to her, you always want to be the exception. You don't want to be a member of the pack. You want to look different. You want to be different. You want to have a reason. I said, so if everybody here that you work with is already doing the same thing you're doing, how will I recognize you for a role in a movie? How will I recognize you for someone that I might want to sell some airtime for me? And I'm just hopeful that he got through. But we oftentimes think that the advice of our peers is more important than somebody. We're dismissed as being old fogies, being out of touch with what's hip and cool. But sometimes being a part of what's hip and cool stands in our way of advancement.
Absolutely. If you just tuned in, this is Black People versus Black Women in Media, but we're talking about life. We're talking about a different direction. I wanted to just shout out Bonnie, Dr. Draper, Lenora, Jewel, Byron, Rachel from Atlanta, Chippy, Craig Tower. Craig has a good question for you. He says, is there someone that you wanted to interview, but you never had the chance throughout your career?
Well, God bless me with that too. I'm a praying woman. I'm not real religious, but I am very spiritual. And I always wanted to interview Nelson Mandela. And Reverend Jesse Jackson made that possible for me to do. In this day and time, who would I like to interview? I know who. I would love to interview Oprah.
I was thinking Oprah when you were
Yeah, I would love to interview Oprah. I would love to turn the tables on her and see whether or not I could do a good interview with her. Our interview styles are very similar. I believe, like what you're doing, impeccable. It's a conversation. I think is more meaningful to people listening. It's almost like you're eavesdropping to a personal conversation. Yeah, I think I'd like to interview Oprah.
Absolutely. Well, did you meet
excuse me, can you influence that? Can I get any help with
I
that?
can put a word in for you, you know what I mean?
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Hey, Oprah, look.
And Courtney, unfortunately, she's no longer in Chicago. She lives in California now.
Here we go. Oprah, Cathy Hughes would like to interview. We're going to record this and then we're going to send her a clip and we're going to make it happen. All right. So
all right.
From my mouth to God.
All right. From your mouth to God's ear.
Absolutely. So Nelson Mandela, was it in person, the interview?
Oh my goodness, one of the greatest nights. I got to tell you a story. So Jesse Jackson, Baba Mandela was running for president, and Jesse Jackson at that time was the shadow senator for Washington, D.C. And he had a fundraiser, and it was $10,000 a ticket. And he only was selling 20 people could buy. And so I bought one, and he knew that $10,000 at that point was really me stretching it. And so he said, bring Alfred, because he didn't sell all 20. He had only sold 19, so he had one more seat available. My son hit the ceiling. Alfred was about, I guess, 18, 19 years old. Ma, we're barely able to make payroll. You're going to contribute $10,000 to a candidate in South Africa. I know he's a great man. I know he, was in prison. I know the whole history, but we don't have $10,000 to give him. He was just complaining all the way there. So we get to the dinner, and Reverend Jackson knows that, because everybody else was a big wig in Washington, D.C. that could easily, do the $10,000. So he seated me next to Nelson Mandela. And it was the most incredible experience. And he positioned Alfred at the table right behind me. And so, naturally, I introduced my son to Baba Mandela, and we had, all this conversation. On the way home from the dinner, my son says to me, boy, am I glad that dinner's over. So I'm anticipating that he's going to complain about the $10,000 that I didn't have again, but I contributed to Nelson Mandela's campaign. He said, I'm so glad it was over, because if it had lasted 10 minutes longer, I was going to give him one of our radio stations, Mama. I've never been that impressed with any human being. He was like Jesus. Albert Stern, it was the exact opposite. going home from what it had been going, because Nelson Mandela had that type of charisma, that type of power. You knew he was a messenger of God. You could feel his power. And then he was so kind. He asked Alfred what he, was studying in college. He made conversation with him. Yeah, so on the way home, Albert said, it hadn't been any longer, I was going to give him a radio station, let alone $10,000. So I said, so it was a good investment, Alfred. He said, oh, yeah, we got to do whatever we can to help him get elected president.
Absolutely. And a lot of people don't know. I went to Africa when he was released. It was a concert with Stevie Wonder,
That's
Drew
right.
Hill, I think it was Najee and Kenny Lattimore. And then after the concert, because Nelson Mandela's grandchildren loved Drew Hill, and I managed Drew Hill, and that's how they got on the show. But then he invited us to his house. Mandela is a very tall man as well. So everything you said about him, it's like you are like you, and it's like you feel celestial when you're around him.
Absolutely. It's a special spiritual connect that he has with people.
Right, and it was just wonderful being. And I think that was our first time in Africa in a concert on a big soccer field, and it was an amazing night. So I thank you for that. I had forgot about my Mandela story until you brought it back up. But this is the Chicken Box, y'all. We're being powered by the Afro-American newspaper, the oldest Black business in Maryland, celebrating 130 years. August 13th, we will have Tommy Davidson as our host. Other talent is being added, but really, it's just a party. We're going to celebrate with a beautiful Black people of Maryland and any others who want to come. But really, it's a night out with your lady. It's a time to dress up, and it's a time to celebrate the Afro. And we appreciate it. And if you don't have a subscription, for less than 2 Uber Eats, you can have a subscription for $40. That's digital. $100, you get the Legacy Edition, the paper, and of course the digital. That's my plug, as well as we're honoring Cathy Hughes at our high tea coming up on June 26th, which is this Sunday, you guys. We're honoring women who win in media, along with Dorothy Gilliam, Michelle Richardson, Karen Temple, and Denise Rolock Barnes. It is going to be a fantastic event. I think it's a few tickets left. Go to afro.com. It is a night or afternoon to remember. It is the high tea. I was wondering earlier,
what's a low tea?
What's low tea? Or, I'm a brother. We don't go to no teas, but Dr. Boware, tell me about the high tea, or somebody give me the high tea.
It's just very formal. It has many layers of serving different types of food. Your clothing is, fancy, and you wear the big hats and all that. So it has a particular formula to it.
Boom. If you've never been to a high tea and you want to do something different, you're tired of Netflix and all the other stuff, the pandemic stuff you've been doing, get out the house and come celebrate with these powerful women this Sunday. Go to afro.com to get your tickets.
I'm really excited about that. I have a family in Nassau, Bahamas that adopted me, a very distinguished family, 17 children. And the mother decided that she wanted one more child. I'm number 18, very distinguished. The one of the daughters, Cheryl, is now the ambassador to Brussels. Okay, and they're coming. They're coming. They saw it online, and I am so touched that they are coming from the Bahamas to attend this high tea. One of the things, again, going back to the advice that Dr. Haidt gave me, those type of cultural, sophisticated gatherings, when you look at pictures of our ancestors, there they are standing on bus stops in gloves and pocketbooks and hats, going to clean someone's toilet and scrub their floors, because they realized that sophistication was not something that should be shunned or looked down on. Again, going back to Black wealth, as long as you do good first, then God will see to it that you do well. There is nothing wrong with being successful. There is nothing wrong. Robert Smith paid the entire debt of the graduating class at Morehouse. He He couldn't have done that if he had had a paycheck. Okay, he was only able to do that because he is, I like to call him, I get in trouble with a lot of folks because I call him the only real black billionaire in America. There's a difference between having stock or owning part of uh, a company that's worth $1 billion and having, he got $1 billion cash dollars, okay, in the bank. All right. And then a whole bunch of interest in others. This whole thing that Forbes is doing, identifying these black billionaires. To be a real billionaire, you need to be in possession of $1 billion, quite frankly.
Boom, with a B.
Okay. And so the reality is this thinking that well, rich people aren't going to do the right thing. They're the only ones that can afford to do the right thing, quite frankly. Okay, nobody else could have done what he did if he were not, in fact, a billionaire, a real billionaire. And like I said, liberation, freedom, they're not free. They have to be financed. And why would I finance your freedom when it's to my advantage to keep you thinking wrong and being enslaved and working for me? That's what Juneteenth is all about. The reason the slaves in Texas did not know that the emancipation had taken place was because it was not in the best interest. So it was a statewide conspiracy. White folks said, don't let these Negroes know that they're free because we need to get as much continued work out of them as possible. Well, guess what? Unfortunately, there's so many of us who are continuing to labor in the fields. We just don't realize it. It's what Harriet Tubman so accurately said. I freed 1,000 slaves, could have freed 1,000 more, but they didn't know they were slaves.
Mm.
We do not realize how so often we do not operate in our own best interests.
We're talking about mindset. We're talking about vision. We're talking about mental slavery. We're talking about things that can move you to the next level just on changing one idea.
That's right.
Just getting just hearing today. Y'all, if y'all haven't shared this and you sucking up all this good information for yourself, hit the share button right under your video and share it with the people that you know. You don't know if it's going to just touch that one person who the light switch goes off on and they decide to change. You are not locked into a contract for life on your current decision. I don't care if you went to
That's right.
college, grad school, you got your PhD, and you decide that you want to do something else, or you feel that God is leading you in another purpose direction. My dad was, and he won't mind me, he was on heroin for 25 years, my biological father. But at 50, went back to school to get his master's in the field and helped thousands since then. You know what I mean? But he could have just stayed where he was, kept going to meetings, but he decided to make a change. And it was just one decision. Your decisions determine your destiny. Cathy Hughes is sharing with us. Courtney, I'll see you burning with another question. Come on, we got a little bit more time left. So, and you are our future, and we're glad that you're on the Afro team. Come on with it.
Sure thing. So do you find that women of color pay a higher price for speaking the truth in the media?
I think that Black folks pay a higher price for speaking the truth. I think that sisters speaking the truth oftentimes have more difficulty in our personal relationships. We have a lot of hostility when we speak the truth, particularly to the most important other half of us, our brothers. And sometimes, we're reared to believe that we can fend for ourselves. I know that there have been times when speaking the truth has aided and abetted me professionally because it developed a power base, but it didn't set well with my husband. It didn't sit well, even sometimes with my son. And so I think that one of the things that we have to understand is not to give up speaking the truth. But as I've grown older, I've learned the art of timing. Sometimes, okay, it's not what you say, it's the time that you say it, the situation or the circumstance that you say it. I wish that more Black women were more vocal in the media. That's the reason the only reason that any business stays away around for 130 years is because they are relevant. They have integrity. People trust them. People want them. And that's why the Afro can say, I'm 130 years old because they have spoken the truth all of those years. I'm sure that there were many times when that truth cost them advertising. I'm sure that there were many times that they came under 100 years ago. Look how much havoc the Trump administration in recent times wreaked on our progress and our ability to express. So can you imagine 130 years ago telling the truth? Not only did you not be able to generate the revenue you needed to stay alive, but you also were putting your life in danger, as we are in this day and time. The hostility towards Black folks, which had been pushed underground, I don't think it ever went away, to be very honest with you, Courtney. But I think that now it's more important than ever before for Black women and men to speak their truth, speak truth into power. Because unfortunately, the Afro is needed more than ever before. I'm so glad that you're recognizing Denise Rolock Barnes, because she is following the same trail that you all have. I'm sure that there were times when it was not in the best interest, even in modern day times, for you all to speak the truth. But the reason you're celebrating 130 years is even during those thin and challenging economic times, because the people needed you, our community needed you and respected you, you're still here. You'll go, it'll be 150, it'll be 200. You're a legacy business. But more importantly, you're the outlet for the information that Black people need. I've said so often that if we don't get the accurate information by the time we get it, it's Black history. It's not current events. And,
that's a mic drop right there, y'all. Say it one more time, Kathy.
By the time Black folks get the information, it's Black history, not current events.
Boom.
And that's when there's a need for Black-owned media to not only tell the truth, but also, as I was talking about, sisters saying what we need to say to brothers in a timely fashion at the right time. But the same is true in the communications industry. We have to really, really understand that sometimes we have to say, Clarence Thomas needs to be removed from the Supreme Court. This brother voted the interest of his white wife over the best interest of the American public. I'm not talking about Black folks. I'm talking about Americans. Okay. You cannot stay on the Supreme Court and not be an advocate of the Constitution, defending the Constitution. That is the only reason you're there for life. And this man voted not to release those White House records to the committee investigating the failed coup d'etat. Now, I don't care if white media wants to call it a riot, a disturbance, or they call it a picnic for all I care. All right, it was a failed coup d'etat. Donald Trump tried to overthrow the American electoral process with violence. That's a coup d'etat. The other countries, press in other countries, called it what it was, a failed coup d'etat. And Clarence Thomas knew that his wife was involved. He knew, because she ain't working. So whose money did she use to finance those buses to bring those revolutionaries, because that's the correct title for them here? There needs to be a removal. He needs to retire. He needs to do it with grace and style and say he's got a prostate problem. Okay, I got cancer. Okay, all right. Everybody will understand. All right.
You don't know you're on the box.
Remain on the Supreme Court, because you cannot vote your personal interests Now, that's not to say that those conservative Republicans that Trump put on there are not going to vote the interest of their party and their interpretation of the Constitution. But on this issue, was not but one Supreme Court justice who voted not to release the records because it is a freedom of information issue. And that was Clarence Thomas. So everybody in Black media owned or programmed or slanted or provided to the Black community needs to be calling for the removal of Clarence Thomas. That type of information is not popular. It can get you in trouble. But that's the type of information that is what keeps an Afro-American newspaper in business for 130 years, which has allowed me this year to celebrate my 42nd year of being in the business of electronic media and digital.
Absolutely. And we're so glad that we're honoring you. If you just tuned in and maybe you missed it earlier, we're having the annual high tea this Sunday, June 26th, from 2 to 5. It's a few tickets left at afro.com. And we will be honoring women who win in media. And Dr. Cathy Hughes is one of our honorees.
That doctor is from Morgan.
Oh, the doctor is from Morgan. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I've been blessed. I've got 13 of them, but Earl Graves is who recommended me for that honorary doctorate at Morgan. And such an honor because he also, I mean, what he did and what his family is continuing, his legacy and important information with Black enterprise. And Earl Graves loved Morgan. Okay, he loved Morgan only second to Black Enterprise magazine.
Absolutely. They named the
building.
building.
Baltimore has always been such a progressive city. I mean, to have had the largest branch of the NAACP, so many historical things have occurred as a result of the Black population of Baltimore, Maryland. It angers me, quite frankly, when I see television series and movies that depict Baltimore as being this, crime-ridden hodgepodge of just trifling. Baltimore, quite frankly, as quiet as it's kept, has had some of the most progressive African Americans in the entire United States of America. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's the reason. A quick another story, if you don't mind me sharing. When we first bought our first radio station in Baltimore, we had a relationship with giant food stores in D.C. where we had our listeners turn in their receipts. And every $10,000 in receipts, they would identify a school and go in and buy computers for them. So I come to Baltimore and I'm making this presentation to Giant Food corporate headquarters because we had just bought a radio station in Baltimore, and they listened very politely. And it was about a maybe 12, 15-minute presentation afterwards. So they said, so Miss Hughes, you don't know a lot about Baltimore, do you? And I said, well, why are you, asking me that? They said, because we don't have any grocery stores in Baltimore, because in Baltimore, there are 26 Black-owned major grocery stores, and Black folks in Baltimore only buy their groceries from Black-owned grocery stores. I always wanted to scream. I was so happy. At that time, there were two different corporations that owned grocery stores in Baltimore. And so Giant didn't even bother. They said, we couldn't do any business, so we don't have any stores in Baltimore, but we appreciate your concern. Now, if you want us to concentrate on the suburbs, they said, but within the confines of Baltimore, Maryland, Black folks buy their groceries from Black-owned grocery stores. The progressive cohesive dedication that exists in Baltimore is what there needs to be a television series about, instead of things that, they're true stories, the corner, those things, but that's not what needs to be emphasized about Baltimore, Maryland. What really needs to be told is the greatness of the Mitchell family, the greatness of the Murphy family, the greatness of so many legacy Black families in Baltimore that have their stories, their efforts have impacted the entire African American community throughout this country. That's what I'd like to see on television.
Absolutely. And I think we're going to call you later and we're going to try to make that happen together. That would be a great thing to document and to
Absolutely.
add the balance to everything else that's out there, right? The untold story. So we're wrapping up with time, and this is where we get on the box and speak our truth. You were just on the box. We brought you a couch and we'll let you sit up on the box. You can stay on the box as long as you want, Cathy Hughes. You're a special guest. But we'll go around the horn real quick. Dr. Bower, you're on the box.
Well, I will use my on the box time this morning this afternoon to announce our Afro endorsements for the upcoming primary election. We want to be sure everybody votes on July 19th, and we want to be sure that you have at least the Afro's information. The history goes that people actually took our page to the polls with them when they went to vote to be sure
Yes.
they made the right choices. So I want you to know that ours will be in the paper this week. And for those who are digital, these are the choices that the Afro has made for this primary election. For city state's attorney, the Afro endorses Marilyn Mosby. For comptroller, the Afro endorses Brooke Learman. For attorney general, we are endorsing Representative Anthony Brown. For governor, we're endorsing Wes Moore. And for Maryland's 7th Congressional District, we are endorsing Representative Kwesi Mfume. You will be able to see this information online. And for those who are subscribers, it will be in your paper tomorrow. Go vote, go vote. Take somebody with you. Go vote. July 19th, go vote. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you guys who don't know about the endorsements. They are a big deal. We make our difference at the poll. I mean, at the ballot. What is it? The polls, the ballot?
Polls.
Just go vote. Okay, I might be saying it wrong. Just get there to vote. Courtney, you on the box.
I just want to say that this was a great honor and I learned some more history. So it's always a great day when I learn something new. So thank you again for joining us.
Thank you, Courtney.
Absolutely. I'm going to go next and save you for last, Dr. Hughes. As I thought about this show, I really realized that you have been part of my life a long time, right? I go back to listening to you when I rode to the Washington Afro with my grandmother, where information is power on WOL, to when you bought your station in Baltimore and you did the first Stone Soul picnic.
Yeah.
And you invited Drew Hill. Let me tell you the kind of lady she was. She was the CEO. She was the first one to greet us. I mean, Drew Hill we were larger than life. She asked us to do this. We came. She greeted us when we got out the limousine. I don't know if you remember that.
I do.
Right backstage. And then just throughout my life and different things that with your son, and then how we've kind of parallel, but not, but just kind of been around the same to the time we ran into each other on, I think it was a Tom Joyner cruise. We were at the slot machines. I don't remember what it was, but but I just wanted to say it is an honor. I've always had powerful women in my life who've done amazing things, but it's always been an honor to have a friend and an ally like you, and just somebody that beats to your own drum. You don't allow yourself to confine to the other rules, and you have always a mindset to win. And so I wanted to always say that you've always endeared the Afro. I'm 5th generation. We always endear your companies and always have been amazed at what you've been able to do with Urban One, from that one radio station to moving to a media conglomerate that is rivaled by not many others in the whole world. And we appreciate everything that you've done. And you've remained a humble servant from Nebraska throughout that whole time. A CEO who can do everything in the station and who actually slept in the shit back in the day. So when you have a dream and you have that burning passion, it's going to happen as long as you don't quit on it. So that's my time on the box. And I like to say, congratulations. I won't be at the high tea, but
Why?
Well, I have a concert.
Oh, okay. That's a good enough
That's
reason. Bring a note.
in New York City. But
I'm really excited about Sunday. I'm really, really, really so thankful that I'm going to be there. I just have one little problem, which is I have a sinus condition and hats give me a headache. So I'm trying to figure out how I can get a hat on long enough to, at least to walk into the tea if I can't keep it on the entire time. But I'm so honored that you all would ask me to do the chicken box. I'm so honored that I'm going to be part of the tea along with some other incredible sisters on Sunday. And I'm just really hopeful that we end up with a waiting list for Sunday, that you all will turn out in force to say happy anniversary to the Afro, but also to give some Black women in media a vote of confidence by you coming out with us. I am so honored that the Afro American newspaper would include me in their activities. Such an honor. So come be with us, please, on Sunday.
Absolutely. Media icon, Dr. Cathy Hughes. Again, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We had a fantastic conversation. I look forward to us getting together to shoot exactly what you described.
All right. Yeah, one of your viewers sent a note saying, I'm praying for that too. That'd be a good interview, I think, right?
Absolutely. I think it's just a good story. I mean, if we can tell whole stories about The Wire, we can tell whole positive.
Thank you. Exactly.
We can tell whole stories about the whole other side. We can introduce some things, and maybe some people who have been in a box can say, hey, come to the high tea, ladies. If you've never even heard of a high tea, come and just be around the greatness and just see a new idea. Hear a new word that'll just spark something to move you forward. And fellas, I guess you can come too. Whether my dad comes or whoever is going to be a date, bring a date, okay? And be, dress up. Come on, it's time to resume. And if I stood up right now, I have on sweatpants, but I have on a dress shirt. But you know what I'm saying? But dress fully up. So until next time, God willing, remember, smile because it makes somebody else feel good. You don't know how people feel. And call a senior. They're home, they're alone, they haven't heard from you. Stop going through your day, your week, your month, and you haven't called anybody in your family just to tell you I love them before you're crying at the funeral. So until next week, God willing, I'm your host, Kevin Impeccable Beck, along with Dorothy Boulware, Courtney, Alexander, and our distinguished guest, Dr. Cathy Hughes. Thank you, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Thank you.